The Fallout TV show Iceberg? Let's go. Mr. House and New Vegas. To start off this Iceberg, we got a very well-known entry that hopefully by now everyone is aware of. In the 8th episode of the Fallout TV show titled The Beginning, we get to see not only New Vegas at the very end of the episode, but Robert House, or Mr. House, who makes a cameo in the Vault-Tec board meeting. Additionally, in this scene, we get to see Frederick Sinclair from Dead Money, which is also pretty neat, even though if we go back to Dead Money, it's not necessarily the Frederick Sinclair that we come to see around the DLC. But the focus here was with Mr. House, who, although is a pleasant surprise to see here, some fans weren't happy with this TV show adaptation and say that not only did certain aspects of his personality feel off, if the show does confirm that Vault-Tec dropped the bombs first, Mr. House not having the platinum chip ready, even with insider knowledge of the apocalypse, would be very strange. Now, there is no dedicated sponsor for this video, so make sure to check out GamerSupps using my link down below in the description. Use code CRAZY to get 10% off. They have lots of new deals, tons of new merch, cups, and lots of flavors for you to choose from. So if that interests you, check them out. Links down there below. Back to the video. Shady Sands controversy. This is by far probably one of the biggest talking points of the Fallout TV show, especially among fans of the games. Shady Sands was a major wasteland settlement in the first 2 Fallout games, having been established well over 150 years before the TV show takes place, and being the NCR capital for most of that time. The Fallout TV show actually showed the settlement in 2296 as being nothing but ruins after a nuclear detonation destroyed most of the city. The reasons behind the city's destruction were explained in the Season 1 finale, and honestly, it's kinda dumb, as so far it seems like Hank destroyed the city because it wasn't governed by Vault-Tec, and also because his wife left him to live there. Talk about salty. It seems like they just destroyed one of the most important locations in the lore out of pettiness, which is one reason this caused such a big stir. The other reason is actually because it was made very unclear when the city was actually destroyed, due to a whiteboard displaying the year 2277 as the fall of Shady Sands, next to a drawing of a nuke. This annoyed a lot of fans because it slightly implied Shady Sands was nuked in 2277, which really wouldn't make much sense due to there being no mention of it in Fallout New Vegas, which took place in 2281. However, Todd Howard himself confirmed that the fall of Shady Sands refers to societal decline, and the nuke itself detonated shortly after the events of New Vegas. I wouldn't be surprised if this was intentionally left vague to get people talking. But either way, I feel like it was a dumb decision regardless, and hopefully they managed to salvage the NCR in Season 2, or the next game, and maybe see a little bit of the Legion. Can't wait for that. Now, this would not be a video unless I shouted out my beloved Patreons. We got Brian Hahn, Person, Fat Lucky Potato, Icy Storm, Mayyall, Jedi Smackdown, Borg, Ty Mulan, Simple Simon, and One Up Gamer. Patreons get videos early and part-time jobs at Waffle House, so if you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, links down there below and the description. You may continue with the video. Ghoul retcons. Another notable controversy that stemmed from the first season of Fallout's TV show is how the lore behind ghouls was actually handled. They were shown to need some weird type of serum to avoid feralization, which seemingly has a very strong withdrawal effects as shown by Cooper Howard outside the Super Duper Mart. This caused a lot of controversy, as it is a straight up retcon, as no prior game really touched on this, as it was simply implied feralization was just an inevitable fate for most ghouls. And how long it took, I believe, mostly depended on genetics and radiation dosage. Like I said, we really never got a 100% concrete answer. Lots of theories, but no facts. But Fallout 6 has tried to connect this lore by introducing the ghoulification serum into the game. To me, it seems like Bethesda is just really trying to overcomplicate something that should just remain as simple as ghouls being a result of burns and radiation, and some turn feral and some don't. In my opinion, they could have the lore establish that the serum was something introduced relatively recently, and while it does delay or prevent feralization, a ghoul will end up becoming feral much faster if they stop taking the drug after already being exposed to it. Also, the regeneration abilities of the ghouls seen in the TV show seem a little far-fetched, especially the healing capabilities displayed by Thaddeus, if that's what he's turning into. We still don't really know exactly what he was injected with, so maybe he is turning into a ghoul. We'll probably see in Season 2. And speaking of season 2, who really knows where they're going to take all this lore? But if Bethesda really wants to experiment with it, we can't really do too much about it, but hope that we at least get some really interesting, cool overhauls in the next Fallout game. Sidetracked quote. Episode 3, titled The Head, gave some pretty iconic scenes, including Maximus brutally wiping out some scavengers with his power armor, and Lucy coming face to face with the Gulper, which in turn led to one of the Ghoul's most iconic lines in the show.
The Wasteland's got its own golden rule. Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
The reason this stood out to so many fans was because it was actually poking fun at the notorious habit of always avoiding the main quest to do random side content in Bethesda games. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who still haven't beat Skyrim after 15 years, but will spend hundreds of hours modding a dragon into a flying Thomas the Tank Engine. And if that's you, don't worry, I completely understand. Fallout's message. The Fallout TV show pre-war segment, especially towards the end of the first season, seems to lean heavily into political messaging presented as anti-capitalism or anti-corporation, which is something many fans have sort of complained about due to the show seemingly lacking focus on the original message: war never changes. While it is a bit odd to see the original message behind the series being sidelined, it has been shown in many prior games that a lot of the pre-war companies were awful and harbored pretty dark secrets. Furthermore, there are a lot of instances found in the game worlds where many people employed by these companies struggled to get by in the days before the bombs, or were horribly mistreated in their jobs. The original creators seemingly respected the direction the show took and the messaging it contained. I mean, looking into the factions of New Vegas, you get to see a really interesting take on specific ideologies, both strengths and flaws, and it would be pretty cool to have that level of depth return in the show. Fallout release date Easter egg. During the final episode of Season 1, when Moldaver finally gets the access code to activate the cold fusion device, there is a neat little Easter egg in the code itself, 101097, which is the release date of the original Fallout game, October 10th, 1997. I know many of you have probably already heard about this one by now, but I personally think it'd be wrong not to mention it, and hopefully we get to see some more sneaky release date Easter eggs in Season 2. Season 2 teasers. Back in May of 2025, during an Amazon presentation in New York, the Fallout TV show got confirmation of a third season, along with a teaser for the second season, showing Cooper Howard recording a number of commercials while complaining about them behind the scenes. It's here we get to see notable advertisements for Nuka-Cola and the Lucky 38 Casino, concluding with a pretty cool shot of the Ghoul and Lucy walking towards New Vegas. If you haven't already, go give this a watch, and I'm hoping that we can get some cool marketing leading up to the second season, because as of recording this, we really don't have too much. Vault-Tec did not drop the bombs. By now, I'm sure you're all aware of the bombshell. Get it? Drop the bombs. Bombshell. Ha 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 ha. Dropped in the first season finale, of Vault-Tec proposing the idea of dropping the bombs first to ensure they'll be able to perform their Vault experiments. Well, since this revelation, a lot of people have pointed out that just proposing the idea doesn't actually mean they did it, meaning we still don't know for sure who dropped the first bomb. Furthermore, Vault-Tec dropping the bombs is a theory that doesn't seem to actually make a lot of sense once you really start looking into it. And Fallout's original creator Tim Kaine even pointed out that it doesn't make sense for Barb, Cooper, and their daughter to be outside of the vault, given Barb's role in Vault-Tec in suggesting the idea. It will be interesting to see if any of this is expanded upon in Season 2, especially considering that this has been a fan theory for like decades now. Main cast official special stats. Before the TV show aired, fans were eager to learn what the special stats of the main cast would be. And not too long after the Fallout TV show released its first season, their questions were answered, at least for 3 main characters and 2 more side characters. Although this information was delivered in the strangest way possible, through the characters being added to the Fallout Shelter mobile game. Like, out of all the ways to do it? Really? Anyway, the official special stats for Lucy are kind of interesting, as her endurance, charisma, intelligence, and agility are all sitting at kind of average levels, with 5s for charisma and agility, and a 6 for intelligence and endurance, with her perception and luck standing out at a 7, and her strength sitting at a 4. Maximus, surprising no one, has an intelligence of 4, but has a decent score of 5 for charisma and luck, 6 for perception and endurance, and 7 for strength and agility. The Ghoul is where all this starts to not seem legit, however, as while he has a reasonable strength score of 5 and a decent endurance and charisma and agility score of 7, his intelligence sits at a 4, which I feel like is criminally low considering that's the same level as Maximus, but anyway. His luck is also a 4 and his perception is a 6, which I feel like is a little bit low personally. Now, 2 other side characters have also had their special stats confirmed. Those being Ma Jun, who appeared in Philly in the 2nd episode, with a strength of 5, perception of 7, endurance of 5, charisma of 7, intelligence 6, agility 4, and a luck of 6. And probably everybody's favorite character, the snake oil salesman, who had multiple notable appearances, but probably one of the best is the scene with the chicken. Classic. Despite that, however, this guy actually has outstanding intelligence and charisma of an 8. 6 points in luck, 5 in perception and endurance, and 4 in strength and agility. Now, if any of you think you would have like a standout special stat in the world of Fallout, let me know down there below in the comments because I'm pretty confident I'd be a 10 in everything. Leaked set images. A large reason why the lead up to the first season for the Fallout TV show generated a lot of hype is actually due to images being leaked from many of the different sets before release, which showed how accurate and detailed they actually were. Something that surprised a lot of people who were expecting much lower quality set designs. From what I can dig up, before season 1, we got teased with leak images of a super duper mart, Red Rocket Station, along with Vault 33 and many of the costume designs seen in the final show. All of this was most interesting for the theorists who like to analyze all the locations and piece together what the story might entail, something that is being seen again with the build up to season 2. As of recording this, we have a lot of familiar leaks adapting New Vegas, such as Legion and NCR soldiers, Deathclaws, many of the Strip's casinos, Novak, Freeside, Karen Airport, and you can bet your ass I'm excited to see the Tops Casino in season 2, and hopefully some kind of callback to Benny from New Vegas. This is one of those moments where I wish Matthew Perry was still alive. May he rest in peace. House Always Wins will be made canon. Since the first season of Fallout released, the teasing of New Vegas at the end of the season has started many debates on how the endings of the game will actually be handled, and which one is most likely to be canon. It's hard to argue for the NCR or Legion, considering the state of the NCR in the show, and the flaws revealed about Caesar's Legion in New Vegas itself. And with the Yes Man ending kind of only being a thing to not softlock players out of beating the game, it seems logical that the Mr. House ending will be made canon, if any. And it's even further supported by the fact he was actually portrayed in the pre-war plotline of the final episode, likely meaning this was actually setting him up for a bigger role in season 2. Now, I have heard multiple times from Bethesda that they don't want to canonize any ending, and they kind of just want to leave it vague, probably to make sure that every player can play the game that they like and doesn't really have to feel like they are being forced to go to one ending. That's the canon ending, I guess. But to me, the House Always Wins is probably the most logical and reasonable one. But regardless of what you think, I can't help but be curious about how Robert House might actually be portrayed 15 years after New Vegas, if he is still alive, and how integral to the plot they're gonna make him. No matter what ending they choose to go with, if any, people are gonna be upset. But as long as they do a pretty good job with it, then I'm not gonna complain. Probably. Vault-Tec phone number. In episode 6, we get to see a cool flashback of Cooper Howard filming advertisements for Vault-Tec, in which in one segment a phone number flashes on screen, 213-25-VAULT, which correlates to 213-258-2858. You can actually call this number in real life, but if you're hoping to secure a place in a vault, you're going to be a little disappointed with Vault-Tec's customer service, as all you'll hear is just some guy screaming for his life. Now, the Vault-Tec phone number is an interesting Easter egg that actually goes all the way back to the first game, in which during the intro, a Vault-Tec advertisement lists the phone number as KL5743. And you can also find another Vault-Tec phone number inside the Soul Survivor's house in Fallout 4, listing it as 188-4 Vault-Tec. Vault Experiments. This entry is probably well known by fans of the Fallout games, but for those who are introduced to the franchise via the TV show, the roundtable meeting in the final episode has many of the corporate CEOs dishing out ideas for Vault Experiments in the event that the world ends, and a lot of these ideas were actually previously seen in other Fallout games and media. Among them are the alleged non-canon Vault 27, in which the experiment was overcrowding the vault by 1,000 people. Fallout 3's Vault 87, which was focused around the FEV experiments, Vault 106, which distributed drugs into the air supply, also seen in Fallout 3, and finally Fallout 4's Vault 75, which separated children from parents, and which parents were executed and the children were put through intense training before either being recruited into the Vault science team, executed, or harvested for their organs, likely for some sort of super soldier experiment. And it was pretty cool to see the show reference all of these deranged Vault experiments. Although sadly none of the Fallout New Vegas vaults were mentioned, it's still pretty cool to see. Mr. Fantastic will be in Season 2. This entry refers to a theory regarding the casting of Macaulay Culkin in Season 2. Now, all of you might know him as Kevin from Home Alone, an absolute classic film. Now, the only information we have regarding his casting is he portrays a crazy genius type character, which many have speculated will be Mr. Fantastic, an NPC found in Fallout New Vegas who works at Helios 1 due to his theoretical degree in physics.
What else? I'm in charge. This whole operation depends on me. No Fantastic, no power. Got the whole NCR suckling my teats, and it feels so good. It was easy, man. They were going door to door asking if anyone knew any scientists. I said look no further. They asked me if I knew anything about power plants. I said as much as anyone I had ever met. They asked me how well I understood theoretical physics. I said I had a theoretical degree in physics. They said, welcome aboard.
It's not just the description of the character that supports this theory, as honestly, Macaulay Culkin actually kind of fits the appearance, and I could see the troublemaker personality being executed quite well. I also have to mention here another theory, that they're going to use Macaulay Culkin to portray that one guy from Vault 77 who was sealed away with a box of puppets and went crazy, purely as an homage to his role in Home Alone, which would be like kind of dumb, but I also kind of like it because it's funny. But I definitely do think he's going to be Mr. Fantastic because, I mean, come on, they look so much alike. Lucy is pregnant. This is an interesting theory that during the first episode, when the Raiders infiltrate Vault 33 and pretend to be Vault 32 dwellers, that the Raider Lucy had sex with actually got her pregnant. And in Season 2, there's a chance that we'll see this pregnancy start to develop, and maybe even a baby being born. Although I am personally against this, I mean, the parental figure trying to protect a child in a post-apocalypse is so overdone. I mean, we've seen it. The Last of Us, The Road, The Walking Dead show, and Telltale Games. Like, it's a cool premise, but we've seen it 100 times now. They should definitely try something new, is all I'm saying. Hidden Super Mutant. In the Enclave base shown in the second episode, for a very brief moment, the scientist Siggy Wilzig actually spots a super mutant corpse being wheeled away by other scientists. Although it's mostly covered and only the hand is visible, Wilzig seems very concerned upon spotting this. And considering we haven't actually seen a super mutant fully adapted in the TV show, I'm hoping they make these guys a lot more menacing than in the games. Interestingly enough, the Vault-Tec CEO, Leo von Felden, proposes the idea of super mutants at the Vault-Tec meeting, and this actually checks out, given that Vault-Tec created the FEV shortly before the Great War, which would later be used by the Master to create many of the super mutants that we see across the wasteland in almost every Fallout game. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This entry refers to the fact that a lot of the Fallout TV show draws direct inspiration from the iconic 1966 Clint Eastwood film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, in which three ruthless gunslingers compete to find Confederate gold during the American Civil War. The title of the film refers to the three primary characters in the film, and it was also applied to the primary characters of the TV show, with Lucy being the good, Maximus being the bad, and the Ghoul being the Ugly, although some people do swap the Ghoul and Maximus's title. The show also has these characters pursuing a common goal to some degree, which leads them to inevitably cross paths with each other, a strong parallel to the original 1966 film. In episode 7, Fallout directly pays homage to the scene in which the character Angel Eyes is introduced, having a similar scene play out with the Ghoul inside of the Wastelander's house. Many pieces of media have been influenced by this film since the 1960s, and many of you probably know Clint Eastwood as a household name by this point. So it was pretty great to see Fallout take that inspiration too, despite being a pretty different setting overall. Lonesome Road naming scheme. This entry refers to a small detail that some of the New Vegas fans out there caught on to. The fact every episode title of Season 1 starts with "The" is actually a reference to the Lonesome Road DLC, which had a very similar naming scheme for its main quest, with the missions being titled The Reunion, The Silo, The Job, The Launch, The Divide, The Tunnelers, The Courier, The End, and The Apocalypse. As you might know, I love small details like this, and it's great to see Bethesda show some appreciation for New Vegas in even the most subtle ways. Each wasteland will get its own season. This is an interesting theory that kind of all depends on the longevity of the show. But basically it states that the TV show will move from West Coast to East Coast across the series, and each season will focus on the wastelands from a specific game. For Season 1, we kind of get combined focus on the locations of Fallout 1 and 2. For Season 2, we already know we'll probably be seeing a lot of the Mojave from New Vegas. And after that, I'm guessing Season 3 might take us to the Commonwealth, or Appalachia, while other seasons could possibly take us to the Capital Wasteland from Fallout 3. Depending on how it all plays out, maybe we might even get the location for the next game revealed through the show, which what we've heard since Fallout 4, my guess is that it will either be San Francisco or New York. Just my 2 cents. This is all speculation though, and I personally feel conflicted about all these prior wastelands being revisited, and we've really yet to see how New Vegas is handled in Season 2, so I suppose it's a wait and see kind of situation. Fallout 5 was planned before the show. This refers to an interesting little piece of behind the scenes trivia that came from a Den of Geek interview with Todd Howard and the showrunners, where it was revealed that Fallout 5 was already well into the planning stage. Therefore, certain elements and storylines that were pitched for the show were actually scrapped due to Todd Howard having them planned for the next mainline installment. The showrunners Graham Wagner and Jonathan Nolan confirmed that they know all about Fallout 5, which has some interesting implications, considering the show could be used long-term to set up events for the next game, if they choose to do so. But hopefully, when we're all in a retirement home playing Fallout 5, the long-term planning will have made for a solid entry for the series. 5 or more seasons. This is talking about an interview with the actor for Maximus, A.A. Ron Moten, which occurred in early May 2025. In this interview, A.A. Ron revealed that the showrunners had plans to continue the story all the way up to 5 or 6 seasons, which is not too big of a surprise considering other Amazon shows like Invincible and The Boys are seemingly planned to stretch out roughly to that duration. It's been said that the grand story for the world and the characters is pretty much set, and 5 to 6 seasons is necessary to carry it out efficiently. Many people believe that the show might potentially drag, but if the showrunners have an actual plan, that's a pretty good sign, and it's really all up to the execution. And for this show, of course, respecting the source material. The Pip-Boys are iPhones. Starting off Layer 4, we have some interesting behind-the-scenes trivia, which this layer has quite a lot of. But this entry is talking about the design for the Pip-Boys that we see in the show, which I had no idea, but apparently the Pip-Boys are just frames that hold iPhones, which have a special app open to make them display the usual Pip-Boy HUD. And if you pre-ordered Fallout 4, this would make a lot more sense, because that Pip-Boy was basically the same thing. But the one thing I hope that they do is whatever app that they were using in the show, I hope that they make it public someday, because that would be a pretty cool app to just walk around with and have on your phone whenever you felt like you needed it. And imagine if you could connect it to your Apple Watch and things like that. Now that would actually be pretty cool. Real jetpacks were used for the show. Another interesting piece of behind-the-scenes trivia was that during the scene of Maximus flying around Philly in the power armor, the scene was actually shot by a jetpack pilot named Jamie Stanley, using a real jetpack, although attached to a rig with many other safety mechanisms implemented, but it's fine, don't worry about that. This is really cool, not only because they actually used a real freaking jetpack, but also because no film production had actually used one since the 1965 James Bond movie Thunderball, featuring Sean Connery, which is about 60 years ago now. That's insane. A Man and His Dog. A Man and His Dog is a Western movie in the universe of Fallout, starring Cooper Howard, who stated that he loved the movie in the first season of the show. For those of you who don't know, A Man and His Dog is actually a reference to A Boy and His Dog, a 1975 movie adaptation of Harlan Ellison's book of the same name. Now, Harlan Ellison was also the creator of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which, if you know that story, you know that reading any of his works is usually a traumatic experience. But anyway, A Boy and His Dog is a post-apocalyptic story following a boy and a dog, wouldn't you believe it, and it's set in 2024, which is very eerie considering that's when the show first released. Now, the boy Vic and his dog Blood wandered the wasteland helping each other fulfill their needs or survival. For the unethical and immoral Vic, all he cares about is food and getting some post-apocalyptic action, if you catch my drift. This is where Blood comes in, as he is capable of locating women for Vic, who rewards him with food in return. Now, I'm not going to go any further into the story, as it's not really important aside from the fact that the movie was one of the primary inspirations for Fallout 1 back in 1997, and also the origin of the name Dogmeat in the games, which was a nickname for Blood in the movie. See how it all comes full circle? The Legion infiltrated the Brotherhood of Steel. This has been a lesser-known talking point amongst fans of the show and Fallout New Vegas. But did you ever question why so many members of the TV show's Brotherhood of Steel have ancient Roman-sounding names, like Maximus, Thaddeus, Titus, and so on? Well, some fans speculate that this is actually because the faction has been infiltrated by members of Caesar's Legion, who seek to reform the Brotherhood of Steel to closer align with the Legion. This theory is supported by the fact that later portrayals of the Brotherhood are more eager to recruit outsiders, and the TV show's Elder Quintus bears another Roman name, and also seeks reform. This would be an interesting concept to see play out, but it's also believed that Legion was actually destroyed sometime after New Vegas, and these members of the Brotherhood are simply reformed legionaries who defected after the Legion's collapse, still carrying some of their ideology with them. We know from some of the leaked photo sets that the Legion will likely show up in Season 2. However, it's uncertain whether their appearance will be in present day or just a flashback. But if it's up to me, I definitely want to see the Legion back because they're definitely one of the most interesting civilizations in this post-apocalyptic world. Cast interviews. Leading up to the release of the Fallout TV show, we got some interesting 1-minute promotional clips in which a few of the main actors were quizzed on Fallout lore and asked what items they would bring into a vault if they had one free choice pick and pick one movie and one vinyl record. For both clips, we got to see Ella Purnell, Lucy's actor, A.A. Ron Moten, Maximus's actor, Walter Goggins, Cooper Howard's actor, and Kyle MacLachlan, who played Hank McClane. Now for the lore quiz, it was pretty entertaining to watch, especially when the cast were asked what year the bombs dropped. And for the second question, Ella Purnell reveals she would take Toy Story 1 and a pair of roller skates. Kyle MacLachlan would take Apocalypse Now and Zeppelin 4 by Led Zeppelin, and his golf clubs, because you're totally going to be able to play golf in a vault. That makes a lot of sense. A.A. Ron would take Billie Holiday record and Face Cream, while Walter Goggins would take a copy of the 1980 film Coal Miner's Daughter, along with some high-grade edibles, a bottle of mezcal, and 1,000 limes. Now, while these interviews don't really tie to the plot or anything like that, watching them kind of gives you the idea of how the actors' real personalities influence their characters in the show, which is an important part of casting and script writing that many casual viewers tend to forget about the film industry. Kimball's portrait. Another entry about cool little details in the Fallout show, the official portrait of the NCR president, Aaron Kimball, can be spotted in the episode titled The Trap in Vault 4 during the Surface Dweller ritual scene. This portrait is actually a recreation of the original one seen in Fallout New Vegas at a few different locations. Although it kind of snuck its way into the TV show and can be very easy to miss, This is a really neat little detail, and could potentially be teasing a TV adaptation of Kimball later on. The Enclave will become the main villains. This is a relatively self-explanatory theory based off the fact that the Enclave appeared in Season 1, and were technically responsible for kicking off the entire Cold Fusion plotline in the show. Always gotta blame the Enclave for everything. While right now it seems the plot is entirely focused on the personal conflicts of Lucy and the Ghoul, some speculate that the story will ultimately shift beyond those personal conflicts towards a more grand narrative about the Enclave regaining power once again, and facing off against the Brotherhood of Steel, likely in Season 3 or after, while Season 2 slowly sets them up to be a bigger threat than what we saw in Season 1. It's not uncommon for popular TV shows to properly introduce the more significant threats more than a few seasons in, and it would be interesting to see if the TV show decides to focus on ending the Enclave threat once and for all, rather than introducing them as a villain of yet another mainline game. The Man from Dead Horse. The Man from Dead Horse is a Western movie starring Cooper Howard shown in episode 3 titled The Head. During the filming of this movie, the script was changed to have Howard's character execute the villain, Joey Toro, much to Howard's dismay, as he always preferred playing the role of a merciful good guy, which is a rather interesting contrast to his personality as the Ghoul 2 centuries later. Now, the reason why this entry is here is because this scene in the TV show seems like it's perfectly setting up as foreshadowing for the characters' arcs of Lucy or the Ghoul. That will likely be seen in the next couple of seasons, as an interaction between Hank and Cooper has Hank demonstrating his inner fanboy by praising a specific line of Howard's character during the movie. There's an old Mexican eulogy, feo, fuerte y formal, means he was ugly, strong, and had dignity. Well, Joey, I'll give you 2 out of 3 on that front. This line was referenced by Cooper during their final confrontation at the observatory in Season 1, reflecting his descent into moral corruption. Given that the scene from the Western movie ties into Hank's character, there's a chance that when the final confrontation with him occurs, if the Ghoul is the one to have Hank at his mercy, we might see Lucy pressure him into sparing Hank, which parallels what Cooper originally wanted when filming the movie pre-war. On the contrary, however, we might see Hank at the mercy of Lucy, who is pressured by the Ghoul to kill him in another parallel to the scene, which will either demonstrate Lucy's own descent into moral corruption if she kills him, or her determination to still be a good person, not making the same mistake Cooper Howard did in giving into the corruption. I suppose only time will tell. The Tunnelers have destroyed New Vegas. This is a pretty scary theory that draws from a few interesting details shown in the last few minutes of Season 1. Specifically, the amount of Deathclaw skeletons shown during the last shots and ending credits. The Fallout New Vegas DLC Lonesome Road featured quite a few Deathclaw, not only to oppose the player, but to introduce a new big threat of the Divide, the Tunnelers. Relatively early on in the DLC, we get to see a Deathclaw get torn to shreds by these guys, just to show how menacing and vile they are, and how they can overrun some of the toughest abominations that the Mojave has to offer. Lonesome Road proposes the idea that the Tunnelers may one day breach the surface and wreak havoc across the Mojave, wiping out everything that opposes them due to their massive numbers and fast reproduction rate. Given that New Vegas doesn't seem to be in the best state from what we saw in Season 1, and no Deathclaw has been seen alive so far, there is a chance that maybe the Tunnelers have actually risen up to conquer the Mojave since the events of Lonesome Road. And this may have had further consequences for all the factions around, especially the NCR. I kind of like this theory, and it would be cool to revisit the Tunnelers, as it does seem like they were set up to be a bigger threat one day. I love the post-apocalyptic feel and like the ruined towns, but it would be cool to see like the New Vegas that the developers envisioned back in the day. I do kind of want to see that. So no matter which way they end up going with it, I'll be happy.
Tunnelers. Predators that make their own roads beneath the ground here. Divide broke their sky, showed them the world above, and the scent of new prey. Be a slower death for the Mojave than bombs and fire, but they'll come for its people, from where they least expect, below.
Moldaver is a synth. Another really interesting theory that could have some implications later on. This one states that the antagonist, Moldaver, was actually a synth created by the Institute, after the original Moldaver used her CIT connections pre-war to ensure her brain could be scanned to continue furthering her goals after the bombs dropped. As we know from Fallout 4, this is definitely possible, and the theory is supported by no current explanation for Moldaver still being alive in 2296, along with her being seemingly not too concerned about her own death, potentially implying she knows she can return as another synth version of herself. This theory might also explain why some seem to worship her, as they might straight up believe she resurrected from the dead. And I personally think there is definitely more to her character than what we saw, so I really wouldn't be too surprised if she makes another return in Season 2 or 3. Enclave Nazi Germany parallel. Through all the years Fallout has been around, many players have made comparisons of the Enclave to Nazi Germany from World War II, being evil and having ambitions to purify the wasteland, or Europe, conquering and annihilating all those who oppose them, while also being a very scientific faction, involved with a number of horrific and unethical experiments. The Fallout TV show seems to continue this idea in some more subtle ways, as in Season 1, they're shown to be operating a secret outpost in a snowy environment, which feels like a nod to the conspiracy theory that after World War II, Nazis fled to Antarctica, which would be fitting for the Enclave considering their defeat in the previous Fallout games. Furthermore, with the canine experiments going on at the base, there is a rule that canines under 10 pounds must be incinerated, but the character Siggy Wilzig is shown to be falsely documenting the statistics and hiding dogs in his walls, which is a strong parallel on how many German citizens would hide Jewish people in their walls, floors, or attics, so that German officers would not be able to find them. If these decisions are intentional, it's definitely going to be interesting to see going along what the writers might do to expand the Enclave even more, provided they actually show up in future installments. Cooper Howard is the mysterious stranger. An iconic feature of pretty much every Fallout game since the first is the luck-based perk Mysterious Stranger, in which a man in a trench coat and fedora will appear in vats with a 44 Magnum to blow the brains out of whoever or whatever you happen to be fighting. Now, this figure is shrouded in mystery, as he appears in every game despite them being hundreds of miles between the locations, and the fact that his appearances occur over the span of nearly 200 years. But a Fallout New Vegas NPC, simply called the Lonesome Drifter, near the El Dorado Dry Lake, is heavily implied to be his son, who was born and raised in Montana by his mother. Furthermore, Nick Valentine from Fallout 4 actually has a whole file on the guy, and he'll even call out the mysterious stranger if he appears in combat in the game. In his case file, Nick has notes questioning his motives and seemingly impossible abilities, with a possible explanation being that he's actually a ghoul with minimal scarring. So, going off all this, some people have began to theorize that Cooper Howard from the TV show is actually the mysterious stranger before the first season begins. All because he's a ghoul and he's a great shot, and for some reason he just went around helping the protagonist of each game without a word or clear motive. Honestly, I don't really buy this one at all, but I won't be surprised if the mysterious stranger shows up at least once in the TV series, considering he is pretty much in every single game. And while researching this theory, I came to love the idea even more after reading this comment about how that interaction would go. From Archmagos Browning, I hope he just runs right through the middle of an intense shootout, kills 2 guys, and runs off again. Lucy asks who the hell that was, and Cooper says, yeah, that happens sometimes, and then it's never brought up ever again. Cooper's family is in Vault 21. In Fallout New Vegas, the only vault found on the strip itself is Vault 21, which is seemingly just another hotel, operated by Sarah Weintraub, who you can definitely romance and bang, just saying. But she also reveals that the majority of the original vault was filled with concrete by Mr. House, and the reason for that is not entirely known. Considering the strip will be featured in Season 2, and leaked photos show a Vault 21 sign, people have speculated that the rest of Vault 21 isn't actually filled with concrete, and instead is now a fully functional secret Vault-Tec corporate facility. If this theory is correct, this facility is where Cooper Howard's family are likely being held, probably in cryostasis. There's a chance that there could also be something far more sinister hidden away in the vault, and we might actually finally get to see what was underneath the strip all this time in Season 2. I can see this theory being pretty plausible, considering it would give Hank McClane a genuine reason to go all the way to New Vegas, and explain why Mr. House was so eager to seal Vault 21 away from the outside world, which is a mystery I don't see a lot of people talking about enough. People have speculated that it probably ran at some point to the Lucky 38, but we never got a definite answer. Shady Sands led to the Ghoul Serum. As mentioned back in Layer 1, many fans have complained about the changes made to the Ghoul lore, but a smaller community of fans have dedicated time and research to rationalizing the changes and figuring out how they would fit into the story without any retcons. There's a theory that addresses the anti-feralization serum from the show and explains that it was potentially invented around the time Shady Sands was nuked, as increased radiation levels in the area led to most of the ghouls seen in the TV show to become feral when they were not before. The inventor of the serum could have potentially been based in a new ghoul settlement, similar to Necropolis from the very first game, as the existence of that settlement established a large non-feral ghoul population in California. Or Necropolis itself might have even been reclaimed by ghouls when the NCR began to weaken in the region. It would be really cool to see this explained and add a bit more consistency to the lore overall, and maybe introduce implications for nuking places like Megaton or the Institute in other Fallout games. But I think out of all the things we've talked about today, I definitely think the Ghoul Serum will probably get a lot of screen time, or at least explained in some way that hopefully doesn't have to retcon anything. I can see the show writers not wanting to get a lot of pushback, but also wanting to introduce this serum, so they probably found a way to make it all work. Or at least I hope so. That is going to be all for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And if you did, make sure to hit that like button and comment down below what you think is going to happen with Season 2. I'm really interested and I can't wait. I'm actually getting ready to head out to Vegas to record some stuff, so I'm definitely hyped as hell for the next season. And that's all I have for you guys today. Leave.